What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Unparalleled Universe for another action figure comparison video. And this time around, we're going to be talking about the Mezco 112 Collective New York Comic Con exclusive Tiger Stripe Wolverine and how it compares to the Marvel Legends Tiger Stripe Wolverine from the Apocalypse Build-A-Figure wave. Some people would say that it's unfair to compare these two types of figures because the Mezco one is an $80 premium specific special type of figure, and the Legends one is pretty much just a general figure for anybody. You could give this to a 5-year-old and they could enjoy it, or you could give it to a 40-year-old that loves comic books and they could enjoy it just as much. But the Mezco one is definitely not for children. It's very high end, it's high quality, there's a lot of unique things going on. Obviously it has the real clothing, that's like the Mezco gimmick, and most of their figures look really nice, but they don't really focus on comic book accuracy. But both of these figures are definitely in different leagues, but I do think that they're comparable to each other. They're both 6-inch Wolverine figures, and I think if you're a person like me, you just want the best representation of characters. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about what I think about these two figures in comparison to each other, and which one's better in all the different categories that you might care about. And I'm not going to keep score or anything because I think each thing has a different level of importance for everybody out there. So I don't want to make it sound like the sculpt is as important as the articulation and vice versa when it might not be for everybody out there. So let's start off with the sculpting and the details. For the Mezco figure, they try to go for a more realistic look. They want to make it seem as if these characters could be walking around in real life, and some people weren't into that. They wanted a more accurate depiction of the Tiger Stripe Wolverine, and this figure is definitely influenced by the Tiger Stripe look, but it is not really accurate. It has its own things going on, but as far as the execution goes, the sculpted details are really nice, and the soft goods look really good too. They did some cool things to make it to break it up a little bit. There's some designs on there. Most of the stitching is well hidden, and I like all the sculpted pieces, the boots, the gloves, the head, the shoulder pads all look good. And it's just a matter of taste here, because if you want a more accurate depiction, then this one's not going to be the one for you. But if you just want something unique and original, then this one definitely takes the cake. On the other hand, the Marvel Legends version has a much simpler design and simpler sculpt work, but he's way more accurate. It looks like he jumped right out of the comic book, and the sculpted details are nice. All the muscles look really good. There isn't really too much paint to talk about on this figure. All the pieces are pretty much casted in the color that they need to be, but still it all works good. But like I said, with this category, it's really a matter of taste. If you want a perfect representation of the Tiger Stripe Wolverine, you'd go with the Marvel Legends version. But if you want something more unique, then the Mezco one is the way to go. But for me, it's all about comic book accuracy, so I'm taking the Legends in this category. And for the accessories, Mezco comes with a bunch of cool stuff. It has a bunch of different pairs of hands. It has a set with claws popped out. It has a pair of fists. It has a pair of open hands. He has 3 different heads, including an unmasked head, which is essential. And he also comes with the Mask of Ogon. So they really went all out with the accessories. And with the Marvel Legends version, all you get is 2 pairs of fists. You have a pair of fists with the claws popped out, and then you have a pair of fists with the claws retracted. So he really should have came with some more accessories. In this category, Mezco dominates. And for the articulation, let's start off with Mezco. He has pretty much everything you would need in a Wolverine figure, but not all of it works as good as it could, especially in the hips, because it has this kind of pleather weird material that a lot of people don't like, and I'm not a fan of myself. I do wish that they went with the blue trunks instead of this weird stuff, but they went with this. And the problem with it is if you keep Wolverine posed in any kind of pose that creases it, it's gonna leave a impression on there, and that isn't good. You know, nobody wants that. The articulation does work, but you can't use it without worrying about damaging the figure, and you can see there's already creases developing just from me posing it a little bit. I usually just keep them posed standing straight up because I don't want that to happen. And aside from that, all the joints are pretty nice, but they're a little bit too tight. You could see that the elbows are really tight. I had to heat them up before I started moving them when I first got them. The shoulders are nice, but you always have some trouble bringing them out to the side. I guess having tighter joints is better than looser joints, but when it's too tight and you're scared to handle the figure, that's bad. But as far as the articulation points, they're all there, and they do work a pretty decent amount, but they definitely are not as good as the Marvel Legends version. With the Marvel Legends version, you could get a full ab crunch. You could get him to crunch forward a really good amount. And with the Mezco version, not so much. That's about as far as he'll go. And you can see the Wolverine has him beat by a lot there. And just in general, all the articulation is better on the Marvel Legends version. You have the butterfly shoulders that work really good. Mezco has the butterfly shoulders, but you can't even tell that they're there. You could see a little bit of movement when you start wiggling it, but it's not like you could really use that joint. And then aside from that, Marvel Legends has all the basic Marvel Legends articulation that you'd come to expect. You have the double jointed elbows, double jointed knees, upper thigh swivel, lower leg swivel, swivel at the waist, the belt kind of gets in the way. You got to shift it around, swivel at the waist, and like I said, the ab crunch. But the big draw here is the butterfly shoulders. That is awesome on this figure. You could get his head to look way up, get it to look down. So for me, the articulation on the Marvel Legends figure is far superior to that of the Mezco figure, and not because of the amount of points of articulation, but just how functional it is. It's way more functional on the Marvel Legends version than it is on the Mezco version. So the articulation category definitely goes to the Legends. And for scale, I'm only going to talk about how they measure up to figures in their own line. I don't really think it's fair to judge them based on how they scale up to figures in other lines. That doesn't make any sense. But with that in mind, this Wolverine figure looks perfect next to other Marvel Legends figures. You can see that he's much shorter than Cyclops, and that's the way that he should be. But for the Mezco one, even though he's a little bit shorter than other Mezco figures, I don't think he's as short as he could be, and he's not, I don't feel like he has the perfect proportions either. He doesn't look short and stumpy. He does look, it is cool that he's shorter than these figures, but he should have been much shorter. So the Marvel Legends version was much more successful when it comes to scale. And for the claws, the Mezco one dominates because I've never liked the claws on the Legends version. They're always falling out of the fist and they're never straight, but the Mezco ones look really nice. They look like almost like actual metal. They have like a reflective look to them, and they're always straight, and they just look really good. They don't feel like they're going to break or anything. And for the shoulder pads, they both try to do something unique. And you could see that the shoulder pad on the Mezco version kind of sticks there, and it's articulated and it moves with the shoulder, so you don't have to worry about it getting in the way of your articulation. As you could see, it just kind of swivels around, but it pops off really easy. And again, it's not very accurate. It looks more armored, but it is cool what they did there. But for the Legends one, it's very simple. It just moves around. It doesn't get in the way of the articulation at all. It just has the one hinge, and it doesn't get in the way, as you could see. It can still swing all the way around. He could bring his arm up. You just have to shift it around. And yeah, it's just very simple and straightforward, and you can remove it if you want, but it's not going to pop off. So for me, the shoulder pads on the Legends version are a lot better. And for the last category, this is going to be very strange because I just want to talk about the buying experience with these figures. For the Marvel Legends one, I looked for it for about a day, and then I couldn't find it, but then I walked into a Walgreens and found it. It cost me 20 bucks, and that was the end of the story. It wasn't a big old dramatic thing, but it was cool. Opened the figure, and I loved it. And for the Mezco one, it was a New York Comic Con exclusive, so they did give you the opportunity to pre-order it. So I pre-ordered it on the website, and then I think it sold out a couple days later. And that happens. It's not a big deal. Then I had to wait for it. Again, that's all good. But then once they started to ship and people started to get them in hand, a bunch of them had quality control issues, mine included. And I tried to fix it and stuff like that, and it was just unpleasant. I was just unhappy with the figure because as cool as it was like, it was flawed, you know. You could see a bunch of the stitching under the blue parts, and that was like a lot of people had that same issue. So then you could contact Mezco and they were willing to replace it, but even when they sent me the replacement, I felt like it still had the same issues. So it really sucked because it was an expensive figure. It was a rare figure that I was really excited about, and it just had this big dumb quality control issue that shouldn't have been there. So that's one thing that just kind of soured me on this figure when I first got it. Even though I love it, it just wasn't as pleasant as when I got the Marvel Legends version. And I know that's kind of a goofy thing to bring up, but for me, it kind of had an effect, you know. It kind of sucks to buy a figure that's really expensive and be all excited about it and then get it from the company that made it and it be damaged, you know. That just kind of ruined it a little bit for me. Even though it's a super high quality figure and I love it, it's one of my favorite Mezco figures, and it's not like I want to get rid of it, and it's not like the Legends version replaces it. But for me, I just got a lot more enjoyment in general out of the Legends version, and I think that he's a better representation of the Tiger Stripe Wolverine. So everyone out there is going to have different opinions, and that's awesome. But for me, it's the Marvel Legends version. Please be sure to let me know which one you like more. Please leave it in the comments. I'm really interested to hear what people have to say, but I believe that's it. So thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And thank you very much. Peace.